What's going on, guys? Mac Junkie here. Welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to get the Google Pixel camera on any Android phone. Now, in the description of this video there will be a link. Now, right now I'm on my computer, and obviously you're going to have to be on your phone to do this, or you can just transfer the file from your computer to your phone if you want to. I'm just on the computer just so I can show you guys easier with a better screen recording. Now, I have the link in I can't talk, sorry. I have the link in the description to this website here, and it's basically a Google camera port to a lot of different devices, and I mean a ton of devices. They got Asus covered, they got Essential covered, they got Google covered, even though the thing's already there, HTC, Lee Echo, I never even heard of this company, and they have it covered. They got Lenovo, LG, which is the phone that I have. I have this phone right here, ThinQ. They got Motorola, they got Nokia, they got OnePlus, Razer, of course Samsung, Xiaomi, and ZTE. So there are a ton of phones on here that are covered by this little port here, and it's going to vary definitely between devices. Some devices are probably going to have a port that works better than mine, and some people might have one that works worse. But basically you're just going to go through this list, find your phone, and click on it. If you have multiple different camera, if you have two cameras, like on my phone I have a standard and a wide angle, you can click on which one, and it will give you a list of a lot of APKs. I mean a lot, and you're going to want to try almost all of these until you find one that's pretty stable that lets you do most of everything. So, like for example, I'm going to go ahead and hop over onto my LG G7, and I'm just going to show you guys how everything works with the Google camera and how stable it is on my phone. But again, just really simple. Go find your device, click on it on your phone, and then go and test out these different APKs, and just go ahead and install them like you would. Alright guys, I'm now in my room here. I got the LG right here, and we're just going to go ahead and go to Google. Again, the link is in the description. I'm just going to open Google, and I have that same website open here, and I'm already on the screen for the ThinQ. But as you can see, if I go back, I'm at that same page with all the different phone manufacturers, and you just got to choose yours. So for me, I have the ThinQ, LG G7 ThinQ, so I just click on there, and then I get a big long list here. I'm just going to bring the phone a little bit closer, of a lot of different APKs. Now they're in order from the latest one that's come out all the way down to the oldest one, but just because one of them is the latest version doesn't necessarily mean that it is the most stable. So definitely make sure you test out a lot of these, because even though I have what I think is the most stable one, which is right here, I'm just going to go ahead and open it. What I think to be is the most stable still has some issues. So I can still take pretty good images, but if I want to take a portrait photo, let me just get the portrait photo. If I want to take a portrait photo, you have to press the shutter twice to take a picture as well. That's another little bug. But if I take a portrait photo, I can go in here, and there's the portrait. You can see it, but if I try and touch it or edit it in any way, the app will crash. But fortunately, if you go to your gallery, it'll just still be there as a portrait photo anyway, so you can still edit it from here. You just can't edit it from within the actual app, unfortunately. So that is a pretty easy workaround. And then some other things that are kind of weird that don't really work too well is if you change settings, and also if you record video, there is no stabilization, not even optical. It just doesn't work. I honestly don't really know why. And also changing the frame rate from 30 to 60, at least, and again, this is just for my phone, doesn't seem to change anything. It still seems like it's always at 30 frames a second. But then again, I'm mostly using this Google camera to take pictures. And one thing that I'm going to show you guys right now is the difference between my phone's stock camera and Google's camera. So I'm going to go ahead and take some pictures with my regular stock camera that came with the phone, and then the Google camera, and see how much different they are. Because the main reason you're probably looking at this is because you aren't satisfied with your phone's camera, or you just want a better camera app to use. And if you're using a more mainstream phone like a Samsung phone, you're probably going to have a lot more luck with these being a lot more stable, a lot more stable port to your phone. So I'm going to go ahead and take some pictures with my regular camera and with the Google camera, and I will be right back. Okay guys, so now I'm on my computer again. I just took a bunch of photos with the native camera app and the Google camera app side by side to try and do, I tried to do as close to each other as possible, try to make the pictures very similar. So the first one is these flowers here. Now this picture is with the native camera app, and the image itself isn't too bad, but one thing I notice is that the shadows are very light. The shadows are just very light. They're not very, there's not very much detail. And then when you're looking at these purples here, the purples are kind of washed out and they're kind of just smoothed over to sort of be the same shade. Now, if we go to the one taken on the Google camera, you can see there's a lot more depth and detail as well as contrast. As you can see, if we zoom into the shadows here, there's actually shadows. And if we go ahead and take a look at the purples, you can see that there's a lot more shading. There's a lot more difference in the colors here, and a lot more detail as well. And especially, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the other one here. On some of the yellows, there was a little bit of like over contrast and just smoothing on the yellows, like in the yellow part right here. And then if I go back out to the Google picture here, we can see that it kept the shadows and it actually kept the detail. Overall, I think it just looks a lot better, especially if we just go a quick side by side. There's before, after, boom, boom, before, after, just like that. That's another good one. So this one right here is that's actually the Google one first. So this is the Google Pixel, or not the Google Pixel itself, but you know, the Google Pixel camera app. And again, just the details that show up in the shadows and then the colors are very good. They pop a lot more. And then we go over here and we see how much more faded and non-detailed it is. If we zoom into this flower here, we see that it's very just sort of smoothed over. It almost looks like it's just blending right into what's behind it. And if we just go back to the Google, as you can see, there's a lot more color and detail there as well. So let's go ahead and go to the next photo here. This one's a little bit spaced apart for some reason, but this is just, I thought, a good way to get it to have a very bright side over here and then a darker side over here. And then also we take a look at the grass. Now overall, this is actually a pretty good image. There isn't anything that's too overexposed. I mean, the sky is a little bit, but it's not too bad at all. Nothing is really too overexposed. Now, if we go to the Google, we'll see that there's a lot more detail in the shadowed area of these rocks here. And also, there's a lot more saturation in the grass, and the shadows have a lot more depth, and they're a lot more shadowy, like they should be. And if we look up here, it's still the same sort of story. The contrast didn't change too much in the sky. Let's go ahead and do a quick comparison there. One of the biggest things I noticed is that this whole side of the rock is just sort of brightened up, and the detail in the rocks is lost a lot. Whereas if we go to the Google image, we can see that not only is the detail kept, but it's also a lot darker and more clear. So that detail in those rocks is kept. Now moving on, we got a picture of Lola here. Let's see. Okay, this one is the original with the native camera. We can see there's a lot more smoothing, like on this rug here. Just look at like this back area of the rug. Let me just sort of do it back and forth. It's a little bit different in size. There we go. So as you can see, the floor gets a little bit saturated. In my opinion, I think it got saturated a little too much here on the Google camera. But then on the native camera, it's really dull. Just the colors are very dull. And switching back and forth, you can see differences in detail in my dog's hair here. This is Lola. Now you can see all the little gray hairs here on the back. Whereas if we go in on the native camera, it seems to sort of smooth that over. And that seems to be a theme with just LG's camera processing or photo processing, is that it tries to smooth, like it takes the color and just tries to smooth over any details, and it ends up losing a lot in the end. As you can see there, we see that we're missing out on a lot of the gray hairs that are showing up here. And if we go back to Google, we zoom back in and we can see all the detail here on all those little gray hairs. So that's another thing that I noticed with this photo particularly. Let's go to the next photo. This is a bowl. We got the native camera here, which again seems to sort of wash everything out, especially around the edges here. And if we zoom, or we don't need to zoom, but if we go back here, we see how much more detail and shadows are kept in the Google processed image. So if we zoom in over here, you can see how all this area is kept dark. And if we go back to the original, it just, again, it takes it and sort of just smooths the whole photo out to be sort of the same color, and it just ends up looking really weird. And in and of itself, it's not a horrible image or anything, but when you're comparing it to Google's processing, it just looks so much worse if we just go back and forth here. And especially if we take a look at the detail in the shadow down at the bottom corner, when we go over to this, it's almost completely removed and it's really fuzzy and blurry, and it's just overall not too good. I think this is one of the ones that shows a big difference here, definitely. What's the next one here? We got this one. This is in a hallway. This is in the hallway of my house here. This one's a little bit blurry. This is with the native camera, and it's just a little bit blurry. And I was holding the phone as still as I could, and it just ended up coming out a little bit blurry. But even so, if we go over to the Google image, oh, where is that? Where's the Google? Where is it? Oh, it's down here. Okay, so this is the Google processed image. As you can see, everything's much more saturated, a lot more of a yellowish type of tint that looks a little bit weird, but overall, it's not too bad. Again, I mean, the software isn't really even supposed to be on this phone here. And as you can see, a lot more detail kept in the shadows. We can tell that those are flowers over there. A lot more detail kept in the end, especially this shadow running down along the edge of the door. If we go back out to here, we see how much artifacts, like there's a lot of the artifacting over there. It just looks so weird. And then if we go over to the image taken on Google, we see it's a lot more smooth and less blurry. So anyways, guys, that's basically it for this video. That was I believe a pretty good comparison of all the different things that the Google camera processing can do to make your phone's camera improve more than it already is. So anyways, guys, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like. If you liked it a lot, subscribe as well, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.